Welcome back to day 7 of getting through the holidays here from Transcodes. And my name is Jona, bryndis, energy healer and energy coach. And if you have been watching this series of 12 live broadcasts every day at 7 p.m., then you know that we are deep in the midst of processing collective energies, processing holiday energies, and really grinding through some of these aspects that come in with a lot of people coming together, a lot of people just really being together in a small space, but also even if we are not really with other people, reflecting on the day, reflecting on the energies that came in today. So since yesterday, lots of stuff is coming down, and I am going through these energies of today, and then I will reflect on the cryptocurrency market of today, and then I'm very excited about this. I will greet Jeff Casper and Ryan McCormick. Ryan McCormick is a radio show host and also the producer of our Hard Warriors Radio, and Jeff and I are sort of the performers there. So we will talk about how humor can help us to decode the deeper aspects of our spiritual journey. But before that, let's all arrive here in today and take a moment to just really breathe through. There's some heavy energies coming in, and perhaps this is for me personally a bit heavier than anybody else or most of you, because we have a energetic adjustment session coming up in a few hours, and for the last 24 hours I had to let all these collective energies sort of go through me to transcode the medicine, the healing resonances that are coming in for the people who signed up for this session. So, that's a heavy energy this time, and I'm expecting a lot of emotional releases, a lot of releases of all these pressurized things that we have talked about in these past couple of days, that have stayed in the hidden, our shadows, so to speak. Yes, and I feel like a broken record. All year I have been talking about processing our shadows and, becoming real and getting to know ourselves. And as these 2007 energies, which were mostly focused on the physical integration for most of us, as they're coming to an end, and as this sort of big cycle here, of this suppression of spirituality and suppression of energetic sensitivity is coming to an end. All right, so I'm not just beating the drum. This is actually happening. We can all feel this. It doesn't matter if we want to awake or if we want to ascend. We are, awakening to this new paradigm of understanding ourselves as energetic beings, whether we want it or not. Yes, and people are starting to arrive here. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's so good to see you. Please let us know where you're from and smash that like button. Yes, this is the currency in which you can sort of give energy back to me. And by the way, this reminds me, thank you everybody for sending in donations. I've received my first Litecoin donation today. And thank you, Roger. And all those beautiful emails that you share with me, how this series, but also, the self-healing community that We have trance codes and the energy sessions. All this, we do this sort of semi-publicly. Everybody can come, everybody can sign up for those. We discuss and work through these things in our self-healing community in the forum that we have there. And so it's nothing is a secret. Everything is kind of like open source. I've always liked this. And all energy healers that are being trained here at Transcodes also, become part of this whole I don't want to say organization. It really isn't an organization, but this whole the core of this community. And yes, thank you, everyone. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I'd like to see you guys commenting or asking here in the live chat, but I realize that a lot of people can't come to the live sessions. It's somewhere in the middle of the night in Europe. Kind of noonish in Australia, Japan, and New Zealand, but many people are still working, or in the middle of dinner time. So that's all right. Lots of you are watching the videos once I post the edited version. So please know that you can continue posting questions or comments there. All right. And again, thank you so much for giving back. This means a lot to me. So if we are looking at the energies that came in today, and I'll start with the physical stuff, and please comment here, guys. Hi, London. Hi, Canada. Yes. Please comment here how you perceive this day. I perceive this day as extremely sluggish, almost like my physical felt way too dense, too heavy for me. I felt stiff today. I felt my own sort of rigidity in the physical. I didn't really have any pains other than maybe feeling really, really tired, feeling the need to rest almost all day long. And I was trying to follow Rebecca's advice from last night, to invite more playfulness and joy into my life. So I've played a lot of board games with my kids, and they beat me every game. So, but that was fun, I really enjoy playing games. So it's a wonderful opportunity to do this with my older kids and my younger kids. So yes, but I couldn't really get to this place of action. I was just sort of sitting there and being kind of slow. So how did you guys perceive this today? The energy of today. Did you feel the same way? Yes, and there's a little bit of a delay, so I just keep talking, and you can comment. I'll pick up on that. Yes, so there's also a bit of a seriousness that is coming in, and that has to do with the year-end energies. I've talked about this in the current energies for our sacred self-healing community. There's this thing that we evaluate towards the end of the year, and if we had New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, then we go back and we judge, and we go into our regrets and into remorse. And yes, Margajata is commenting with detached. Yes, detached, erratic, nervous. Okay, nervous is something that I was just going to add to it. You can feel sluggish and nervous at the same time. It's sort of an inner agitation, but that it doesn't really come into expression. And so it feels all bottled up. And instead of doing, maybe what you feel like you need to do, or what you get guided to do, you're just going into this sort of numbing place and don't do anything, and just sit there and eat things that are just gonna, slow you down even further. And yes, lazy, exactly. Yes, Val, same here. I didn't feel like going out. I cooked dinner. I had to bring my son to the airport. All these things, seemed like an intrusion into my little world here. I didn't really want to go out into the world, and I'm glad that Jeff is cooking dinner right now so that we can eat when we're done. Without him, that wouldn't be possible. Yes, but there's a bit of a sluggishness, and this has a lot to do with, not being fully clear. This is a clarity piece here. What really needs to be done? Okay, so we're reevaluating things, and we're going back and forth. This is kind of like what I felt today. There's a back and forth. A lot of energy is taken up by that, and not really forward moving nor a backward movement. It's more like sort of a freeze. Okay, and I've talked about this in the past, how our ego's coping mechanism, the ways we deal with things when we don't really want to deal with them, okay? So coping is not really dealing. Coping is just getting through. And this is actually why I called the series Getting Through the Holidays, because I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to offer things that help you to deal with it. But I definitely wanted to reflect on how we can feel. And when we go into our coping, it usually means that we are sort of going on slow burner, and we're using whatever works best for us. And that can be, of course, anything all the way to like destructive or behaviors, such as things that we know, substances or, bad food or, all these kind of things. I don't want to talk about this right now. We've talked about this in on day 2, but I want to point out that there's that everybody kind of has a different primary class, a primary cluster of coping mechanisms. I wanted you to become aware of this. Here at Transcodes, we talked about this in the last couple of days within the marathon that we had. And that is to become aware that this connection between the physical and the emotional and also the mental is determined by these 3 major ways that our system can respond to challenge or react better, say, and that is fight, flight, or freeze. And these 3 main or primary coping mechanisms, they're ingrained in our neurological system, meaning that they will kick in without us being aware of us, without us wanting, to react this way. And I asked the people who were in the marathon to maybe reflect on or try to find out sort of what is your primary coping mechanism? Do you, when something challenging happens, what do you do? Do you go into this like muscle through and go into resistance and go into fight and compete and whether it's with another person or not, or in your relationship or not, with yourself, it doesn't matter, with an issue, do you go full frontal against it and fight and sort of get a kick out of, last man standing and, defending and justifying, or do you go into flight? Do you tend to run away? Do you tend to, sweep things under the rug, as we called it yesterday? Do you deny? Do you numb yourself to the point that you cannot, even, acknowledge whatever has triggered that in you, by simply, avoiding the whole thing in the first place or hiding from it? And that's kind of like what I tried to do today. Running away doesn't work for me. I'm more of a fighter type. But the third primary coping mechanism, the freeze, that is something that I find myself in occasionally. And today I found myself there. And that was this sort of, I think some of you said detached. Yes, to like... it's almost like cutting yourself off from everything. So you're not running away, you're not going against it, but you're sitting there and you're dissociating from what is going on. And all you want is, just give me some space, and all you want is like your own little world, where, all these problems or all these things that you want to change, where they don't really come into the forefront. So you want things to maintain a certain status quo. That is the freezer. And all three of these are directly linked into our ego. So if you begin to understand that, that your primary coping mechanisms, your ego coping mechanisms, as I call them, then you may become a little more understanding and compassionate with yourself and also with others. These primary coping mechanisms, guys, they are ingrained into our autonomous nervous system. All right, and it takes a lot of training to get past those. This is what we do here at Transcodes, okay? So we practice this with every energy session. First, of course, through observing, and to even get into this place where you become able to observe them, and then to acknowledge them, and then to learn tools that allow you to disrupt these patterns that you use to get by, but that never really solve anything. And then, you can learn ways such as some of the energy tips of these past couple of days play into this, how you can connect better with your physical reality. And when I say physical, I don't mean, body reality. I mean the 3D reality that is going on, and how, and detect how you create sort of this alternative reality within yourself, emotionally and mentally, and sometimes also physically, in order to not deal with it. Okay, these are ingrained into our system, and it takes training. It takes training to overcome these. But to give you a heads up, I did the energy forecast for 2018 today, and this is going to accompany us for the next year. Actually, for the next 3 years. So we're going to have to lift up that rug and clean up underneath it. That is our job here for this new paradigm that is coming in on all levels of existence. Okay, yesterday we illuminated the relationships and how we could do this there, with the renegotiating, reevaluating things and referring to, what is really important to me, what makes me feel loved, what makes me feel safe, and how can I find ways to go into fulfillment, get away from this just struggle, of having this job or having this relationship that keeps eating up all my energy, which I could use for manifesting, new inspiring things that I could use to align myself to abundance on a physical, emotional, mental, like wealth, health, and love level. And all these things I get sort of tied up in just dealing, or actually not dealing, namely just coping, with what our struggles are, with our suffering, and never really moving forward. So these are the subjects that are coming in here today, and I'm looking at my list. Some of you seem to have experienced this in this way that Val and I experienced this. Okay, not just sort of wanting to function on a bare minimum. That's kind of like a freeze thing. Some of you guys felt extremely energized, and I want to point this out because this is actually a very cool, almost funny type of phenomenon, and that is that when you actually begin to face things and when you actually begin to let go of all the things that make your life a struggle, you are going to experience, or you are experiencing, your energetic self free of all these burdens, of all these blocks. And guess what? If you've never consciously experienced this, you think something is wrong with you. I've had this happen here the last couple of days. People calling in, I just feel so good and so inspired, and my heart is pounding and my whole body is buzzing. Is something wrong with me? No. No. This is awesome. You are experiencing your life force flowing through your energy body without these stored things that are holding you back. Enjoy this and use this as a reference point, as a reference feeling for how it feels like when your energy flows, when it's flexible, when it really, works for you. Okay? And then, of course, the flighters, The flighters today reported severe anxiety. And this is coming in. I'm expecting that we're going to be dealing with this pretty much all week. Next week, fear, scare, uncertainty, wavering, back and forth, beating yourself up, judging yourself. All right, this is a difficult place to get out of on your own. My suggestion for you is to seek someone to talk to, to just share, or even, if it's just writing an email, you can write an email to me and use me sort of as your dumping buddy, okay? But to write down and to become truly aware of all your fears. Because they lose their gravity, they lose their magnetism when you call them out. And as you do this, as you label them, then they become smaller. And then, sort of this more aware part of you can come back in and can say, actually, that is not such a real fear. And most of these fears that I have, they either come from this place of being afraid of not being in control, or they're coming from a place that is way, way back in my childhood. A lot of people still going through inner child stuff, karmic family stuff right now, and so forth. So understand that these things can be addressed bit by bit, but you have to get your energy first into a higher vibratory place. You have to shift your energy into the place of being able to respond and not react. React based on your autonomous nervous system. Respond based on your higher consciousness, the one that you have been working for. Okay, so this is my tip here, but we're gonna be able to listen and to the experts here in how to shift and how to decode the truth of our awakening process in a few minutes with Ryan and Jeff, who also my Heart Warrior buddies in the Heart Warrior radio show. But before we go there, real quick, the crypto update. Not much has happened today. There was a slight shift again. There's this wavering. There's the same observation that I made here on a personal level. Is this sort of reevaluating, going back and forth, but operating on a minimum level of existence. So nothing really went down. Nothing really went up. The total market capitalization almost stayed the same. There's a sideways movement. There's a waiting, and a getting into position. My tip for you is get into position. All right. I've got a lot of emails in regards to what kind of exchanges, what kinds of wallets should I use. Guys, there's a video that I produced, giving a general overview over these things. Please watch this. Don't ask me questions. I live in so-and-so. What wallet should I use? This is a waste of my time because I've already talked about this and written about this like 100 times. Also go to YouTube, watch some of these YouTubers that do nothing but reporting about cryptocurrencies, and maybe sign up for some of their basic courses. You can get them as cheap as $10 and they're really good. Okay. Tomorrow I'm going in the energy update at 2 p.m. I'm going to give a little deeper insight into the crypto market right now at the end of the year, how to get ready for 2018, and I'm going to publish my portfolio, what I think is a good portfolio to get through 2018. So please tune in to the energy update live tomorrow at 2 p.m., which is a slightly different format, as you know, because I'm reflecting on the energies to come. All right. Yes. And if you have any questions, then please let me know. I'm calling in Ryan McCormick and Jeff Casper here as our panel guests. All right. And I hope I'm going to have to work on moving my head out of the way because I'm not sure.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hey.
Welcome, Jeff Casper, Ryan McCormick, to day 7 of getting through the holidays. How are you guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's an honor to be with you, Miss Jona and Mr. Jeff Casper.
Hey, Ryan.
We're together so many times, but we never see each other on video. Now, we don't have good enough internet here at the house to get you guys on there in video as well. I'm going to have to work on this in the future.
Don't worry, Jona. You're sparing your viewers that they should not be seen. If they saw my face, they would be drinking so much more.
Okay, well, you're not going to be incognito here. I'm still going to show your face. But this is a technical challenge because I'm going to have to squeeze my head all the way to the corner. I have like the armrest of my desk chair here is poking into my ribs right now so that I can get your heads onto the screen. So people will actually see a picture of you guys on the screen. I'm not sure if I can get all our big heads here.
You just don't want to be at the nudist colony.
No, Ryan, I'm not going to use that one. Only because...
No, I'm Irish.
Okay, so you guys already get the gist here, okay? So there's a seriousness, of course, in a lot of the things that we experience. But then there's also medicine, in looking at things from a little lighter perspective and not get too hung up with our own shit. Sorry to say this word in that way, but yeah, so Ryan and Jeff, please, what is your opinion on the spiritual journey and seriousness, or respectively the humor that needs to come in? What is your guys' opinion on that?
If you can't take yourself a little bit, laugh at yourself a bit, not in a rude way or demeaning way, then it gets too serious. You get stuck in it a lot of times, or you get too stuck in the thinking processes. So by lightening up the load and realizing, like, there's times I literally laugh at what my ego comes up with, what my judgment says, what patterns seem to show up. I literally begin to kind of laugh and go, that's really where you're going. Okay. And it's like, if you don't kind of back up a little bit and kind of make a little fun of yourself, not by being rude or demeaning or anything like that, you begin to look at things a little more lighthearted, and you begin to accept it. Plus, if you do this work long enough, and you talk to other people, you realize that they have very similar patterns, or at least they have the same amount. So then you begin to realize we're all in this same kind of thing. So then you can begin to laugh about it, and it takes that edge off. You begin to see that it's okay to be human. It's okay to have mistakes. It's okay to have done things that are not okay and all that kind of stuff, and have things done to you that are okay. It's part of the journey, and that makes experience. I'm sure Ryan will share here now.
Hey Jeff, you didn't see this.
You spoke so eloquently. I'm afraid to even tarnish your answer by stepping in, but I guess you have to have a contest.
I was just going to say, Jeff, you weren't that cool last night.
All right, I just want to let everyone know this. All right, this is a fact of life. You and everyone you know is going to be dead eventually. Everyone's going to die. So that being said, I think you can either go through life taking it so seriously, or you can laugh. And I think that having a sense of humor has a lot of benefits. First off, it just allows, I think, the energy to kind of flow, and a lot of people take themselves so seriously. I feel the ones that take themselves so seriously, they put all this energy into wasting their time and being upset because you're internalizing everything. And I think the second you can start to laugh at life and laugh at yourself and laugh at your situations, you take that power back. That energy you're putting into being upset, complaining, and pain and suffering, you're transforming it. That's why stand-up comedy is such an amazing art form. A lot of those people up there are in serious pain. They're mentally crazy people. I used to be a stand-up comedian. I was horrible at it. But I was doing that in order to take some of the pain of my life and transform it to the good. So I think that anytime something really terrible happens to you, take every opportunity you can to laugh at yourself, laugh at the situation, take your power back. I mean, again, you're going to be dead. Everyone you know is going to be dead, so might as well laugh and enjoy life while you have it.
Well, Ryan, this is actually really cool, and many of the listeners or watchers know you, and we're doing this Hard Warriors radio show, and you have your own Outer Limits radio show where you talk with people from all walks of life. I mean, celebrities, politicians, clairvoyants, authors, doctors, I mean, like everything, right? And you're very experienced in dealing with other people and with their issues. But how do you deal with like sucking up all this like sort of news energy and all this sort of serious energy? How do you deal with this personally?
Well, alcohol is amazing. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, it's bad." No, I think it's fantastic. I think I just listen to it, absorb it, and then I try to sage myself and cut loose. I take it in because I have to do it for just the radio show and also my business. I don't know how I do it. I mean, I've actually gone to you and asked you and Jeff questions on how to kind of, disattach. And your advice has been fantastic. One of the greatest pieces of advice you both ever gave me was to make sure that your chakras are not fully open. Make sure they're closed. Be careful to be sure to ground yourself. Yeah. I mean, this is valuable information that you bestowed upon me, and I can't thank you enough. So I think that when you are experiencing and absorbing a lot of negativity, do whatever you can to make yourself laugh and ground yourself. Take some time for yourself, relax, reflect.
And I think, Ryan, you like us as well. You have dogs, right? I mean, you go into this playful mode with your dogs, and that helps too, doesn't it? I mean, to have someone where you can like immediately go and play with or go goofy, if necessary, to just release some of that pressure inside, right?
Yes, dogs are fantastic. I have two puppies, Zeus and Gaia, and a cat, Kaylee, and they all three boss me around, and basically we treat them like queens and kings. They're on our bed, they get organic treats, they sit on the easy chair, they kick me up, and petting them all the time and seeing how happy they are is just amazing. Yeah. It kind of reinforces the idea that, yes, the whole world's crazy, yes, the world's run by sociopaths, but there are moments like this when you see those dogs and they're happy and they don't realize that the world's run by sociopaths and they think that everything's great. And I think that dogs and any kind of animals will bring it back and ground you and make you realize how wonderful life is.
Yes, actually, if I had a puppy mill, I could have gotten rich over the last 10 years. I don't know how many times I've actually recommended people to get a pet. To get a dog or a cat, and how many have actually followed through on that, and it really worked well for them. Not a puppy mill, of course, but you guys know what I mean. Like there's two things I could have become a really good salesperson for, and that is dogs and espresso machines.
Well, you got great energy, Jona. I think you could sell anything. You like, listen, here's some nooses. Here's some nooses. They're wonderful. And you're like, oh, God, I'm so sweet. Let me get a couple of those nooses.
Right. Some family. Well, here I am talking about all this serious stuff. So, Jeff, I wanted to, and of course we're doing this deliberately here, but last night when the kids beat you in Risk Legacy, right? You weren't all that composed and all that sort of.
No, not at all. I was real angry.
Yes. So let's talk about, why is it so difficult sometimes to tune into humor, to tune into the slightness, into the playfulness, and what it is that we can do to catch that within ourselves and then shift it. What can we do? But let's first talk about it. What is seriousness? So from an energetic and spiritual point of view, what is that actually?
Well, usually you get locked onto something. You get fixated. You get positionalized. All of a sudden, like playing that game last night. This is a 7-hour or 5-hour game, whatever. And, it gets intense because you got all these factors and all these rules, and we've got a very intense family that plays games way too intensely, so we get a little, feisty with each other. And when you get too fixated, it's like your energy gets locked on, and now you're stuck in that pattern, and it's almost like you get rigid. You're very, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's almost like your energy goes very vertical. It's not wide. It's very precise. It's getting into this moment. And as that continues, your avenues of out kind of get less, because the more we played and the more I was getting a little frustrated because I almost won. It got it's tired,
only because I was dead tired.
Oh, yeah. Plus, we had no sleep and all that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is just a game, and this is true of anything. It doesn't matter what the pattern is. That's a very fun one, and that's easy to kind of see. But anything that you deal with, any pattern that you have, when you get that locked on feeling, when you feel so positionalized and so rigid, that's when, and that's what spiritual work is when you can work to catch that. So what you're really working on is creating that space. You can go, oh man, I'm just really being, an ass. I'm really being intense. I'm really afraid, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Like last night I was really mad because I almost pulled this off. And then there was one little variable in the game where I forgot about, and it just, got me too excited. So it's when you catch that. And then I had a moment, to talk to to talk to our son and say, hey, this is just a game. We're cracking up. It's nothing personal. And we started laughing about it. And it begins to shift things. And then you realize how silly it is to kind of get stuck in those things and how intense it takes your energy. Like it literally locks you on to the point where you don't see anything else.
Yeah, as soon as you arrive there, I think it's easy, to see that. But, when you're stuck in that seriousness, then it's impossible sometimes to see that. I mean, like...
If you have that moment of humor where you start to crack up about yourself, like I literally could step back a bit and realize how intense my energy was. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting caught up in a game. I'm getting caught up in something that, although it's fun based, I'm getting too intense about it. And then you can begin to laugh. And as you begin to laugh at yourself, not in a demeaning way or a judgmental way, but just to accept that you're human, that you have, as a human, you're pretty much guaranteed to make mistakes. You're pretty much guaranteed to be ignorant somewhere, quite a bit actually for most of us. And by realizing that, and like Ryan's been saying beautifully, is that you don't take things so seriously. You can step back a bit and go, "Why am I so locked up?" And there's no point. It's just a game, and that's true of any pattern to a degree.
It's I like how you say that. It's
great, Jeff. It's great.
Realizing that it's all playing a game, because I mean a game, it can be in a negative way or it can be in a positive way. I talked about this yesterday a little bit when we talked about relationship stuff, and I said it has started again. People are starting to play games again. They're trying to manipulate, they're trying to control, they're trying to cover up, they're trying to hide. Those are all games. And just like you described this with this narrow energy, you get so fixated on it that you cannot realize how you're actually part of this game. And the only way out is to really put a wrench in there, either from the outside, which usually doesn't go that well when somebody else puts a wrench in there, or you really train yourself to do this. Ryan, since you've done stand-up comedy, did you actually ever go to like a training course or something? What did you learn?
Oh, I did. I was learning about joke delivery, and it was, would do things. And you know what? A lot of people in my classes, they would do these jokes. They were kind of clean, and they'd want to, kind of go for the easy laugh. And I didn't like doing that. I like doing edgy material. My opening joke was just incredibly make people just very nervous, and I loved it because I loved pushing the envelope. So I wanted to go out there and see where I could go. And I guess the stuff I was doing is very edgy, and I'm very thankful that social media wasn't so dominant back then, because I think some of my stand-up routines would easily go on social media and be demonized. So I just enjoyed it. I think when you go up in front of people and you can try to make them laugh and provoke them, it's great. And
even I get banned at Facebook, believe it or not, and I'm like as serious as can be. But Ryan, teach us a lesson. How can you? Like when you in that place where you like say maybe with other people, right, where everything is so tight and so narrow, right, and you come in there, how can you break the ice? Teach us something that we can all go home and practice.
Sure. One of the first lessons is that the second you can laugh at yourself, you have disarmed anyone from saying anything about you. You've taken away the power of being, aware and being concerned what people think about you. Because I think a lot of people are very insecure. So the second you laugh at yourself, you have already empowered yourself in a way that most people are not and probably will never be. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you could say something to someone that will make them feel happy or pointing out a compliment, you are empowering them. You're helping them to realize their own power. And I think once you start to do that, once you laugh at yourself and then you compliment and point out good things in others, you're going to be part of this energy field. I think it's just wonderful. It just flows. I think so many people out there, they're hungry, they're insecure, they're seeking. And if they find that someone else has that, even on a small scale, people are going to be drawn to you naturally. And again, if you don't take yourself too seriously and you have a lot of humor, I think it generally builds a very positive energy frequency. So, I don't know. Do you want more?
I think this is very wise, Ryan. I didn't expect that from you.
Yeah, you're probably like, oh my god, did that actually make sense?
Yeah, and it was really wise too.
Oh yeah, once in a while I'll say something to my wife. She's like, wait a minute, that made total sense. That oh my god, what's going on? She thinks that there's you made sense. What's wrong with you? I understand you said something intelligent. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Is something wrong with me?
Having delusions.
Yeah, so you get this, guys. Okay, so there's so much healing in just. I mean, even if you would turn off the volume right now and you would just sort of ingest the energy that comes through us talking about this here in this way, you would probably already feel this. Okay, so energy worker utilizes these things. It's just difficult sometimes, to make you laugh about yourself, through, like an energy session. That can better be done in conversation with you. But Ryan, I really want to learn this. How can I deliver a joke? Because I am like the world's worst joke deliverer. I kill everything before it comes out. How can I get better at delivering jokes and maybe helping people heal, through that?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be about your jokes. It's if you smile at people, if you're presenting in a positive manner, it'll resonate. And I think if you're really looking at how to tell jokes, you probably want to get it's called Joke Writing for Idiots. It's a book by Jim Andrinos. It's the person I used to work with. He's a master joke writer. And he'll give you an actual formula, the setup, the punchline, the insert. And he'll actually give you a formula that you can develop several jokes in your own. I also think that if you go out and you buy joke books and you find a particular joke funny, tell jokes on a regular basis. I always have 5 or 10 different jokes that I say. Just about all of them are incredibly offensive to most people because I love the very edgy humor. But get used to telling jokes. Get used to repeating jokes that you like, and then develop your own method of switching the words around. I think that if you're able to point out the absurdities in life, if you're able to point out something positive in a very negative situation and present a light to it, you are in essence telling a joke, if not theoretically speaking, doing a joke-telling formula. I think as long as you make people smile, if you smile and you make people laugh a little bit, it'll catch on. So that's probably the best thing. And also watch George Carlin too. If you watch George Carlin, if you watch Bill Hicks, they're very intelligent the way they speak. And I feel that they were great metaphysical teachers, the way they were teaching, because they were using humor as a means of disarming a person's subconscious mind. They were making you laugh, but they were putting a lot of incredible information on. I think Bill Hicks was way ahead of his time, and George Carlin was way ahead of his time as well.
Now, I've noticed with myself that part of my humor is very sarcastic. It's very degrading to a degree. It's I laugh. I think it's funny, but I don't really think, like from where I am today, that kind of humor is really appropriate, because I can feel it within myself. It comes from a place of superiority. When you said, get used to telling jokes, you know what joke came into my mind?
Yep. What? Which one?
This is a joke that Europeans make about Americans. Is it safe to say that?
Yeah. Americans are all fat. They're all fat.
No.
They're brain dead, so go, throw it away.
No.
Can't wait to hear it.
No. Here's how the joke goes. Do you know why Americans grow like mushrooms?
Why? No.
Because they're kept in the dark and fed with shit.
That's awesome.
But it comes from a place of superiority and degradation, right? So
it's great. It's great. This idea of what's collectively speaking appropriate. I think that so many people are so wrapped up. They're so wound up. If you look at the movies that were from 20 or 30 years ago, people seem to be a lot more go with the flow. And if so many people are so upset about something, that's their problem. If you find it funny and it's funny to you and it brings light to your life, why not just keep it? It's not up to you to like lower your standards and lower your humor so other people can get it.
Well,
let them catch up to you.
If it's to the expense of others, I mean, this is the conflict I have within, and I get guilty, and I think that's why I kill jokes, you know, because I'm always concerned that that I might hurt somebody else's feelings, you know. Well, deep down, you know, I'm getting a good kick out of it, but you know, I also know that as a European, I'm snobbish, you know, and you know, so I do understand my position.
Jona, if you think about it, we're all, apparently speaking, we are all part of the same consciousness. We are all infinite consciousness. So all jokes, whether they be directed at your human self or another's, they're all self-deprecating because we're all one consciousness. Mm-hmm. So whether you direct the humor about you or someone else, it's all self-deprecating at the end of the day. Metaphysically speaking.
Yes, I mean, I do. I like that. Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that because I do see this, and that the conflict that I have within, you know, is part of that because I can feel the degradation in that. If I weren't part of this, I wouldn't be able to feel the degradation, right? I mean, this is what I tell people when they ask me, you know, how does humor fit into the spiritual journey? I basically say to them that, you know, just like what you said. You know, that it's a medicine, you know, and also it helps, by the way, to loosen up our autonomous nervous system. You know, there's something that happens even by just doing this. I once did this all day long just to see if it would have an effect on my emotions without laughing. But it actually does.
It does work. Yeah, smiling, yeah.
But, you know, like, you know, why is it so, like... I'm missing an English word here, but why is it so not okay, you know, to bring humor into the spiritual journey? Why does this have to be all mystical and all woo-woo and all, you know, why? You know,
I think a lot of people are stiffs. A lot of the people, they're stiffs. They think they're holier than thou, and they seem to have this snobbish attitude, especially the New Age movement. I mean, I'm not gonna. I know there's some people here are part of are into it, and I can't. I really am not cool with anyone taking themselves way too seriously. I think once you take yourself way too seriously, and then there's this disdain for humor. And if you look at anything about Stuart Wilde, what he used to do is that he used to go out and he would make a lot of jokes, and he would really incorporate the humor into his works, and I feel that's what attracted people. So why is it, theoretically speaking, not okay? I don't know. I think it's totally fine. I think that, Jona, you're on the side of righteousness. You're right. You've got the moral high ground, and many people don't have the moral high ground. So whether or not being okay or not, forget it. You're already there. And I think people need to fall in line behind what you're doing. And so keep up the great work. Keep on bringing the humor. Thanks. They'll catch on eventually if they're smart.
I think, yes. You know, I think as long as someone is not, you know, like really demeaning. There are some jokes like, you know, sort of sexual jokes, for instance, gender-related jokes that can be very demeaning, you know. And I think as long as we feel into the joke or into whatever it is that we're feeling, you know, that makes us laugh, or as long as we know why we're laughing, and then I think we have enough discernment, you know, to rip a joke, you know, in the right moment, you know.
Well, and there's a fine line there, and I know what you're saying, Jona, and I know what you're saying, Ryan, too, because, you know, the thing about humor, and anybody who's done speaking that uses humor can pick up on this, and it's the same with inciting even anger, which is a little more talent. But if you use a joke in an effective way, the next thing you say, because there's a laugh, there's a loosening up, they have a tendency to pick up more. So when you can laugh with friends, it has a tendency, as long as it's not too sarcastic or not too, I know what you mean by demeaning on it, it has a tendency to open everybody up to be more vulnerable, to be more intimate, because now everybody's kind of loosened up. They laugh, because what laughing does, like you said too, with trying to smile, I can't see if I knew what you were doing, it loosens up your energy. It actually speeds it up. And there is a fine line. You know, if too much cynicism gets in there, if too much sarcasm gets in there to a point, it can bring the energy down. But it's about kind of balancing it out. It really, really is. And there's also the humor of just laughing at yourself and kind of seeing how silly we can be. That's more of a it's just a reality check. Like, oh my gosh, I'm taking this way so seriously. There's no point, you know. And you can crack up about it, and then all of a sudden you begin to laugh at how silly your judgment is, or how funny your ego becomes, and what it tries to do. And if you really begin to see the patterns behind the patterns, like the first time I did critical inner voice work, where I'm trying to break down some of these negative inner statements I had, I realized I felt crazy for a couple of seconds because I could hear 4 different voices of my own talking at the same time. And I just started cracking up because one sounded like Spock and one sounded like a little kid and one was something else and then one sounded like how I was at the time. And, if you don't laugh about that, then it's like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious, because I knew I wasn't having any issues with mental health, but it was more by, holy cow, this is what, no wonder I had a hard time at that point in my life knowing what I wanted to go for because all these voices spinning in my head telling me what to do. And if you can't begin to kind of take a break and crack up about that, which you guys both talked about, Ryan with the New Age movement and some of this rigidity we can get into sometimes, and that's just one example. Typically, that's because we get too specialized. We think we're on this journey, we're on this trek, and to a point, that's accurate. You have to kind of get the mind on board when you start going down the spiritual path, but then you got to kind of get it out of the way. The mind, a lot of time, leads us there, but then there's a lot of traps in there. We can get too focused and too fixated, and that's when specialness comes in or that rigidity comes in, and that's where you got to learn how to loosen up. So telling jokes and having some fun with it, and it's also the energy behind it. When you told that joke, it was more lighthearted. You meant playfulness of it. If you meant that and had that angst behind it, where some people do about Americans, and it's understandably so, then it becomes a little more negative. It becomes a bit more harsh. So it's kind of learning that balance. And being playful with it. So it's a fun thing to learn, and it's something that if you learn how to develop it, you can begin to kind of crack up. Even if you've had a moment where you went full on ego and, you're just stressed out of your gourd and you say something stupid, like playing a game and, losing it and starting to yell at people for no point and, 3 o'clock in the morning, like I did last night, you can kind of crack up, and just go, okay, all right.
Yeah. So a lot of people here are commenting. So Janelle says, humor in truth was laughing at yourself breaks through all barriers and all masks fall off. I love that, Janelle, because that's another power of humor. It's not just healing and loosening up like Jeff and Ryan talked about. It's also very connecting. It can really connect, when we can make a joke about even like say our own weaknesses. This is like our way here at home, in this household of 2 energetic of 2 energy healers and 3 energetically sensitive children. We rip jokes about our stuff all the time. That's how we stay sane.
I think you need to do it. And I make jokes about how bad I am in the bedroom. I mean, I do. It's like, but it's true. Oh my God. But I think it's kind of cool. It's like you're taking the power back. And one thing I think, Jeff, you brought out something about how some jokes have like a negative connotation to it. Well, if you hear a joke and it upsets you, I think it's revealing something about yourself. You're responding somewhere to that. So it could be revealing a piece of truth. Yeah, when it comes to the American public, I say you gotta give them everything. You gotta hit them over the head several times because I don't think they're in a very good place at all. So anything that provokes them, it causes them to look within themselves, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if we want to deliver like a message, like say if I want to deliver like a criticism with a joke, I think I can do this if I have the courage to stand up for it and revisit it and actually have a serious conversation about that. Like I do, if I rip a joke and there's like a little bit of sarcasm in there, I don't have a problem with talking about this, like saying, this is how Americans look like from, other countries' point of view, And so, and I can also explain why that is the case. I live here, so I understand how some of these things come about. So I, like to have that, not just to like dish out, but to also be willing to discuss this if needed, Well,
it disarms you. What I think, I'm not sure if the lady said again on there, but how she said that it's a disarming. What humor can do is be very disarming. It allows you to kind of crack up. You begin to let some crap go. So these famous speakers, Ryan mentioned Stewart, very talented at being able to utilize humor in ways to make people challenge their own rigidity. And in doses, that can be extremely powerful. And in the same way, when we can sit back and just crack up about how we do things and how our ego gets involved or how our emotions spin us or how our mind tries to do whatever it does, it's a disarming a factor where now you can go more into acceptance. You can go more into allowing it to come forward, and even and like you've said many times, I'm sure on this talk or whatever, once you can feel it, you can begin to heal it. So you can begin to it disarms to the point where there's no need to defend for a moment, and that's the beauty of it.
I love J.P. Sears. I don't know if you guys know him.
Awesome.
Yes, and Ryan, you had him on one of your shows. Tell us a little bit about him.
Up.
He makes fun of all the spiritual people.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, just have personal experience. He was very, very easygoing. He didn't mind being challenged. His humor is very light. He's very light, but he didn't. I don't think he takes himself seriously. Yeah. And he made some pretty edgy observations, especially in the beginning. And I think someone like him, it's great when you have somebody like that who doesn't take themselves seriously, who articulates himself well. I love it.
Yes.
It's just ones that do the holier than thou stuff. Like the Joel Osteens or these other people that they try to seem like they're holier than thou, and I got the moral high ground. I always think that those are the ones that are eventually going to fall, and I love when they fall. It's great to watch somebody wave that finger. I'm a moral person. Next thing you know, they're caught with like who knows what. Right. But I think that when you come from the place of humor, and you already put yourself at a low level, and you have no expectations. If you do something that's good, people are going to be unexpected. They're like, wow, that's wonderful. And if you do something that's not so great, it's like, we didn't expect much out of them anyway. So, be humble and have low expectations.
There's some the coach in me, of course, has something else to say about this, but I know what you mean. Here Sheila says.
I'm sorry, I'm corrupting.
No. Sheila says, for instance, I feel like that humor helps me to stay out of my specialness. I think that's very wise to bring this up because, part of that phenomenon that you just mentioned, Ryan, right? When you put yourself on a pedestal and you put yourself up there, the air gets thin and the pressure gets high, right? And, there's a form of specialness there. The more sort of a superior and the more special you are, the less space you have and the more narrow you become. And so that's why, these people, and this is, I think we all love it when people fall, that have put themselves or that were put on a pedestal, because it is sort of an equalization again. It feels unnatural, to have these people that are constantly on a moral high ground and never have any flaws and never make any mistakes or anything like this. It just doesn't resonate true with us because we don't ever experience anybody like that, and that's why
I tried it for about a few weeks. It doesn't work.
Weeks or years? Did you say weeks or years, honey?
You're right. Probably a couple years.
No, I think we all did. It's okay. That's all part. That's a big part of our journey, really, to discover that specialness in us that we all have to a degree. We just have to watch how we project this out, if it's destructive, if it's toxic, or if it's just in a way that we, occupying more space than others, and maybe we can work on, like Ryan, what you said in the beginning, to consolidate our energy a little more, so that we don't become too susceptible to absorbing things from the outside too much, But
I think that when people take themselves way too seriously, and anyone that says I'm offended, I think the people who say that, they deserve to be offended, because they're the ones that are kind of like saying, listen, these are my insecurities. You need to modify your behavior so I don't get triggered. And I think that I know it's a very touchy subject with some people, but if you transcend that insecurity and you don't get upset by this, you're going to become stronger. Yeah. That's why I think that, sometimes the humor, being provocative, being edgy, taking jokes and making jokes about things that are, repugnant, like murder, and being able to bring light to a dark situation, you are taking away that power, the negativity associated with those. And I think you're becoming stronger. So I think if you incorporate humor into your life, it's great. More you can, the better. Laugh at yourself as often as you can. That's just my advice. I don't know.
Oh, it's very wise. And Cheryl comments here in the chat and says she loves to be a codependent joke teller. Okay, codependency is one of those coping mechanisms most spread. It's like a spiritual disease almost, amongst energetically sensitives and empaths. I would love to come up with a collection of codependent jokes. Please, Cheryl, if you want to be in charge of this, I'd love for you to keep a database and collect codependent jokes. That would be a wonderful project to loosen things up. Awesome.
Well, you can make jokes about anything. Again, once you laugh at something, you're taking away its power. And I was laughing. I could not laugh at a lot of jokes earlier in my life. I got very insecure, very worried about what people think. That's another part of it too. Laughing at yourself is taking away the concentration of worrying what people think. When you are in a state of perpetual insecurity and you are in that state of fear, you can be easily agitated. This is exactly where the fascist controllers want you to be, because once you are worried about that, you cannot focus on what's going on in your reality. And there's that thing called the state of fear. It's a trap. I think it's part of the matrix frequency where you're in that state of fear, insecurity, you can't see. Once you get beyond that and you feel good inside and you rediscover that divinity within, that infinite power within, and you listen to your coach. Go to transcodes.com. Please go to that Heart Warrior program. It's going to empower you so much. Once you find that inner power, you could really start shaping and changing your reality in a way that you probably didn't expect. So I'm just saying, if you can, try to get out of that fear, that fear of now.
And that actually answers the question from the beginning, right? Why is it so hard for us sometimes to see this? To actually realize that we are like stuck in this narrow path, in this rigidity, in this seriousness. And that's because we are probably too busy with our fear or with our anger or with our victimhood, And most of the time, that is not even anything that we are seeing either. It's something that, like Ryan brought this in, that is induced or conditioned, through the environment or through the society or through the collective. So that's why, guys, collective energy updates are useful, because, if you get just a little bit of a heads up of sort of what everybody else is experiencing, it's a lot harder to take yourself too seriously, because if you know that everybody else is going through the same stuff, then it becomes easier for you to let go of it. And Ryan, thank you so much for bringing up the Heart Warrior program. We get a lot of questions on our
phenomenal,
top of the line
it was really great
program. But I want to point out something different, namely the Heart Warriors Radio. Do you guys want to explain a little bit to the audience what this is and where we can listen to it?
Jeff, you've got the much better voice, so people want to hear your voice.
Well, no, it's just it's a show where all three of us really talk about specific issues in the journey. We interview people that are kind of on the cutting edge of various focuses in various areas, like nutrition, diet, psychology, counseling, so forth, all kinds of things, and where we really try to feel out and work through some cutting edge stuff on how to really develop yourself, how to really help yourself heal. And it's a lot of fun, because all three of us laugh a lot. We have a lot of fun, and we work together quite a bit. So it's really an entertaining experience. And we try to keep it really lighthearted and focused on really just helping people. And very similar to this show here, but we just specifically speak about specific topics. And it's on the Outer Limits Radio website, but is there a certain link? Right, I know there is.
We got outerlimitsradio.com. There's an entire section for Heart Warriors, and we can post it all over Facebook.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I have a blast.
So if you ever have a sleepless night or get too serious about yourself, then tune into outerlimitsradio.com and click on the tab for the Heart Warriors Radio, soon to be aired as iTunes and Lip Sync podcasts, hopefully.
Yes.
And of course,
it's on the right now. People can go to it, and we're just going to keep on adding more shows.
That's awesome. And the same.
I have to point out something. I just saw the picture that you put on this.
Is this like 20 years old?
No, I know. I looked at the picture and I could totally see like them doing a commercial for Chris Hansen's next on To Catch a Predator. This guy, and next zooming into my picture. I had the oh my god, from that angle, I had the creepiest look on my face. Okay.
We'll vouch for you, man. It's okay. We'll vouch for you.
He thinks he's going to drop off candy. He's in for a just so scary.
Oh god.
And, come back to something positive. The Heart Warriors program, I love it. I mean, because we've had you on the Outer Limits of Inner Truth several times, and it just works. We always get a tremendous response. So the fact that you guys are adding your own, keep on elaborating on your posts and what your teachings and bringing guests on, I think it's taking the consciousness in a different direction. So we love it.
Cool.
So it is okay to be entertained by spirituality. I truly believe in this. I think this is something that we need to integrate into all areas of our lives, and it doesn't have to be, special, and it doesn't have to be narrow, and it doesn't have to be righteous, and it doesn't have to be anything, because this is exactly the theme of the new year, of everything, that whole transition, awakening, ascension, or whatever you want to call this, that we're going through. And that is not to be anything or anybody anymore, to be real, to become who we truly are. And all these things belong to the journey. All these things, including areas that people do not like to talk about, but these areas that people don't like to talk about normally, like Ryan mentioned, like Jeff mentioned, these are things that culminate, that accumulate underneath our rugs, all right? And we're going to have to look at those. We're going to have to clean up there as well. Or else we're always going to have these blind spots. We're always going to have these areas that we are unable to deal with. Okay? All right. It was awesome to have you here. And as we were talking, I was having the idea, man, we should do like a New Year's episode where we dress up as somebody, and I had this visual this vision of us dressing up, because it kind of looks like a poster, like a movie poster what we have up there. But we're not going to do this. However, tomorrow on day 8 of getting through the holidays, we're going to have another threesome here. We're going to have another 3 panel guests here, namely actual heart warriors. Okay, so people who have gone through the Heart Warrior program here at Transcodes, and who have now founded a new project, as they found together in that community, the heartspath.com, which is a blog and an entertainment based site to share all these different aspects of the journey, and to bring people, to loosen up about their own experiences and to take the specialness out. I'm very, very excited to have Brian Moss, Sheila Reed, and Gosha Stahua here tomorrow at the same time. All right. So, Ryan, thank you so much for coming to our show tonight.
It is a great honor. It's Jona Bryndis and Mr. Jeff Casper. Love you guys both very much, and your listeners are fantastic. It's a great honor to be with you. So thank you so much for bringing me on your show, and I hope it was fun.
It was. I enjoyed it. It certainly helped me to get out of my seriousness, because I had a tough day today.
Listen to George Carlin. If any of you are on YouTube, listen to George Carlin. Listen to his best bits. You'll laugh. Bill Hicks is great too. Okay. And if you also watch videos of people doing something stupid, like a show called Ridiculousness, all these things could trigger you to be in a good mood. A 2-minute clip of watching someone fall down a flight of stairs could be like one of the most rewarding things you do. It'll pull you into a very good place. Chances are it'll be me from like 10 years ago.
Thank you for your wisdom, Ryan. And thank you for your wisdom, Jeff, as always. People can find you on selfunification.com or email you there at info@selfunification.com if they want to book a session with you, a clearing session or a coaching session, or just a how to rip jokes session.
Cool.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for commenting and for contributing. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm looking forward to our 8th day tomorrow And if you still have nothing to do tonight, you can still come to the energetic adjustment session called New Paradigm in 2 hours. Deep clearing work that is being done there. And if you have off from work and don't need to be anywhere, then come to the energy update tomorrow at 2 p.m. here, same place, Transcode's YouTube Live. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Bye.